Most Play Store users never change this setting, and if you have an Android phone sitting in your pocket right now, there's a genuinely good chance you fall into exactly that category, because this particular setting has been sitting quietly in the background of the Google Play Store for years, silently making decisions about your device on your behalf every single day. And most people have simply never opened the menu where it lives, let alone taken the time to actually adjust it to fit their own personal needs. And in this video, we are going to walk through exactly what this setting is, why Google configured it the way it did by default so, what actually happens on your phone because of that default configuration, the real-world consequences this has for your data usage, your storage space, your battery life, and even your app security. And finally, the exact step-by-step process for changing it to whatever configuration genuinely works best for you. So let us start with the setting itself, because it is genuinely one of the most consequential toggles buried inside the entire Play Store interface. And it is the Auto Update Apps setting, found by opening the Google Play Store app, tapping your profile icon in the top right corner, going into Settings, the Network Preferences, and finally tapping into Auto Update Apps. And once you get there, you will typically find three distinct options waiting for you. The first option updates your apps automatically over any network connection, whether that is Wi-Fi or your cellular mobile data. The second option, why? CH happens to be the default setting on the overwhelming majority of Android devices straight out of the box. Updates your apps automatically, but only when your phone is connected to Wi-Fi. And the third option turns off automatic updates entirely, requiring you to manually review and approve every single app update yourself before it actually installs on your device. And here is the genuinely important part of this entire story, because Google made a deliberate design decision years ago to set that second option, update over Wi-Fi only, as the default behavior for essentially every single Android device sold, and the overwhelming majority of Android users worldwide have simply never opened this menu to actually see what option is currently selected, let alone thought carefully about whether that default arrangement genuinely matches how they personally want their phone to behave. And this matters considerably more than it might initially seem, because leaving this setting on its default configuration means your phone is constantly, silently, automatically downloading and installing new versions of every single app you have installed, completely in the background, typically overnight while your phone is charging and connected to your home Wi-Fi network, without asking you a single question about it, without showing you exactly what changed in that particular update, and without giving you any real opportunity to decide in advance whether you actually want that specific update installed on your device at that specific moment. And let us walk through exactly why this quiet, invisible process actually matters in practical, everyday terms. Starting with storage space, because modern app updates have grown considerably larger over the years. Some popular apps now weigh in at several hundred megabytes per single update. And if you have dozens of apps installed on your phone, which most people genuinely do, all of them quietly updating themselves automatically every single time you connect to Wi-Fi. That storage consumption adds up considerably faster than most people realize. And this becomes a genuinely significant issue specifically for anyone using an older phone with limited internal storage or a budget. Device that's shipped with a smaller storage tier to begin with. Since Android devices tend to become noticeably sluggish once available, storage space runs critically low. And many people experiencing that exact slowdown never actually connect it back to the fact that dozens of apps have been silently accumulating storage through automatic updates running quietly in the background for months without their awareness. The second genuinely significant consequence involves your mobile data plan specifically, and this is where the distinction between the three available options becomes particularly important, because even though the Wi-Fi only default is specifically designed to CT your cellular data allowance, plenty of people end up somewhat confused about exactly when their phone is actually connected to Wi-Fi versus quietly running on cellular data instead, particularly people who frequently move between multiple different networks throughout a typical day. A home Wi-Fi network, a workplace network, a coffee shop hotspot. And if your phone briefly connects to an unfamiliar or unreliable Wi-Fi network that then drops the connection partway through a large batch of app updates, your phone can sometimes seamlessly fall back onto cellular data to actually finish that update process, particularly for smaller apps. Depending on your specific device, manufacturers own additional settings layered on top of the base Android auto update behavior, and for anyone on a limited or metered mobile data plan, this kind of unexpected data consumption can genuinely add up to real unwanted charges. Over the course of a billing cycle, especially for people who have dozens of frequently updated apps installed and simply never bothered checking or adjusting this particular setting, even once since they first got their phone, the third genuinely important consequence, and honestly, one that receives considerably less public attention than storage or data usage, but arguably deserves even more, involves app permissions and functionality changes that can arrive completely unannounced through an automatic update. Because when a developer pushes out a new version of their app, that update is not always simply a small, invisible bug fix running quietly behind the scenes. Sometimes an update introduces an entirely redesigned user interface that longtime users find genuinely disorienting. Sometimes an update adds new advertising placements or subscription prompts that were not present in the version you originally chose to install. And in some cases, an update can even request new permissions your original version never asked for. Access to your camera, your microphone, your precise location, or your contacts list. And while the Play Store's data safety requirements and Google's broader review policies are specifically designed to catch clearly abusive practices and provide developers with transparency requirements around exactly what data an app collects. The practical reality remains that most users, having enabled automatic updates and then completely forgotten about it, never actually see a clear, deliberate prompt asking them to review and specifically approve significant new permission requests before an updated version of an app quietly installs itself and immediately starts requesting expanded access to their device. And this is genuinely one of the more overlooked digital privacy considerations that flows directly from this one. Seemingly minor toggle sitting deep inside the Play Store settings menu, and it is worth being fair and balanced here because automatic updates absolutely do serve a genuinely important and valuable purpose. And this is not simply a story about a setting you should always disable without a second thought. Automatic updates are how the overwhelming majority of security patches actually reach your device in a timely manner. When a developer discovers and fixes a serious security vulnerability in their app, having that fix reach your device automatically without requiring you to remember to manually check for updates yourself is a genuinely significant security benefit that protects millions of users who might otherwise never think to manually update their apps at all. And this is precisely why Google chose automatic updates as the default behavior for the vast majority of users in the first place, since for a huge portion of the overall Android user base, particularly people who are not especially technically inclined and simply want their phone to work reliably without requiring constant manual maintenance, having security patches and bug fixes arrive automatically genuinely represents the safer, more convenient choice, and disabling automatic updates entirely does shift a meaningful amount of ongoing responsibility onto you personally, since it means you become directly responsible for periodically checking the Play Store yourself and manually deciding whether to install available updates, and if you genuinely tend to forget or simply never get around to actually doing that manual check. Disabling automatic updates could realistically leave some of your apps running outdated, potentially vulnerable versions for a considerably longer period of time than they otherwise would have run, and this is exactly why understanding the full picture, including both the benefits and the drawbacks of each specific option, is genuinely more useful than simply being told to blindly toggle a setting one particular way without understanding why that recommendation is actually being made. So let us walk through, in practical terms, exactly who tends to benefit most from each of the three available configurations, starting with the fully automatic update over any network option. And this option genuinely makes the most sense for people who have a generous or unlimited mobile data plan, who do not particularly mind their apps updating at unpredictable moments throughout the day, and who place a very high priority on always having the absolute latest version of every app installed as quickly as possible without needing to think about it at all. The second option, updating automatically but strictly limited to Wi-Fi connections, which remains the default configuration for most devices, genuinely represents a reasonable middle ground for the majority of typical users, since it does provide the meaningful security benefit of automatic patching, while still protecting your cellular data allowance from unexpected consumption. Though, as we discussed earlier, it does still carry the less obvious trade-offs around storage consumption and unannounced permission or interface changes that many users never actually think carefully about. And the third option, disabling automatic updates entirely and reviewing every single update manually, genuinely makes the most sense for a fairly specific group of users. People running an older device with genuinely limited storage space who need to carefully manage exactly what gets installed and when. People on strictly limited or expensive mobile data plans who want complete granular control over exactly when large downloads actually happen. People who have previously been burned by an app update that introduced an unwanted redesign, added intrusive advertising, or requested new permissions they were not comfortable granting. And more generally, anyone who simply prefers having full visibility and complete control over exactly what changes are happening on their own. personal device, rather than allowing that process to happen silently and automatically in the background without their direct involvement. And it is genuinely worth walking through the practical real-world mechanics of what manually managing your updates actually looks like day to day if you do choose to select that third option, because it is considerably less burdensome than it might initially sound. When you disable automatic updates, the Play Store does not simply stop telling you about available updates entirely. It continues to track exactly which of your installed apps have a newer version available, and you can view that complete list at any time by opening the Play Store, tapping your profile icon, and selecting Manage Apps and Device, where you will find a dedicated Updates Available tab clearly showing every single app with a pending update, along with a brief if section, which becomes genuinely relevant if you happen to share a device with children or simply want to proactively set meaningful content restrictions and app rating limits for your own household, regardless of who else is using that particular device. And there is a settings menu. It comes down to the simple, well-documented reality that a substantial majority of smartphone users across essentially every platform tend to treat their default settings as though they were somehow permanent, fixed, unchangeable facts about how their device fundamentally works, rather than treating them as what they genuinely are, which is simply one particular starting configuration chosen by the platform's designers, one that was deliberately selected to reasonably serve the broadest possible range of typical users, but that was never actually intended or designed to be the single objectively correct configuration for absolutely everyone. And this exact same underlying pattern repeats itself constantly across nearly every piece of technology we all use on a genuinely regular basis. Default privacy settings on social media platforms, default notification behaviors on messaging apps, default data sharing preferences, buried inside a huge range of different services, and in essentially every single one of these cases, meaningfully. Understanding what your specific default setting is actually doing behind the scenes, and then making a genuinely deliberate, informed choice about whether that particular default actually still serves your own individual needs, is really one of the most practical, immediately actionable forms of digital literacy any smartphone user can develop. And it genuinely does not require any advanced technical knowledge or specialized skill whatsoever. It simply requires the basic habit of occasionally opening up the settings menus of the apps and services you already use every single day, and taking a few honest minutes to actually read through what each individual option genuinely does, rather than simply assuming that whatever was already selected for you by default must automatically represent the single best possible choice for your own specific situation. And bringing this entire discussion back around to the specific Play Store auto update setting we have been walking through in such detail throughout this entire video, the genuinely practical, actionable takeaway here is refreshingly simple. Take just a couple of minutes right now, while this topic is still genuinely fresh in your mind, to actually open your own Play Store settings, navigate specifically to that network preferences and auto update apps menu, and take an honest, considered look at which of the three available options is currently selected on your own personal device. And then take a genuine moment to think carefully about whether that particular configuration actually still matches how you personally use your phone today, your current mobile data plan situation, your available device storage capacity, and how much direct control you personally want to maintain over exactly what changes on your device and precisely when those changes actually happen. And if, after that honest consideration, you discover that the current setting genuinely still works well for your own specific situation, that is a perfectly reasonable outcome too, since the entire underlying point here has never really been to insist that any single one of these three particular options is objectively superior to the other two in every single case. The actual point is simply that you should be making that specific choice yourself, deliberately and consciously, rather than unknowingly leaving your device running on a default configuration you genuinely never even realized was actively making meaningful decisions about your data usage, your available storage space, and your device's overall security posture every single day without you ever being consciously aware of it. And that same broader mindset, genuinely worth carrying forward well beyond just this one specific Play Store setting, is really the single most valuable and immediately practical takeaway from this entire video. If you found this breakdown genuinely useful, and if you personally discovered your own phone was quietly running on a setting you'd honestly never even noticed before, please take a moment to like this video, share it with anyone in your life who could genuinely benefit from a few extra minutes of straightforward practical control over their own device, and subscribe to this channel so you continue getting these kinds of genuinely practical, easy to apply tech tips as we continue covering more of Android's most commonly overlooked settings in future videos. Let us know in the comments below exactly which option your own Play Store auto update setting was actually set to before watching this video, and whether you have decided to change it as a direct result. And we will see you in the next video. Until then, stay informed, stay in control of your own device, and stay curious about what other useful settings might be quietly hiding right there in your phone, waiting for you to actually go find them. And before we fully wrap up, let us quickly address a handful of the most common questions people tend to ask once they actually start digging into this specific corner of their Play Store settings, starting with one of the most frequently asked: will changing the setting to manual updates cause my apps to eventually stop working entirely if I simply forget to update them for a long stretch of time? And the honest answer is genuinely reassuring. Most apps will continue functioning completely normally for a considerable period, even without the latest update installed, since developers generally maintain backward compatibility for at least a reasonable window of time. Though it is worth noting that occasionally a specific app will eventually require you to update before you can continue using certain features, or in some cases, before you can continue using the app at all, and the app itself will typically display a clear prompt telling you exactly that whenever it becomes relevant. So the realistic risk of switching to manual updates is less about apps abruptly breaking, and more about simply not getting access to newer features or the very latest security patches quite as quickly as you otherwise would. Another genuinely common question people ask is whether switching this particular setting has any meaningful effect on their phone's operating system updates specifically. And it is worth being clear that this is a genuinely important distinction. The Play Store auto update setting we have been discussing throughout this entire video only controls updates for individual apps that you have personally installed through the Play Store. It has absolutely no effect whatsoever on your phone's core Android operating system updates or security patches, which are handled through an entirely separate settings menu, typically found under your phone's general system settings, rather than anywhere inside the Play Store app itself. Meaning disabling apps auto updates will never cause you to miss an important operating system level security patch. Those two systems are genuinely independent of one another. A third question genuinely worth addressing is whether there is any way to get the best of both worlds, specifically automatically receiving critical security patches quickly, while still maintaining some meaningful degree of manual control over larger, more disruptive feature updates. And unfortunately, the honest answer here is that the standard Play Store interface does not currently offer that level of granular distinction between a minor security patch update and a larger feature update. The three available options we walked through earlier remain your only native choices, though some more advanced users do choose to periodically check the changelog information provided on each individual app's Play Store listing page before manually approving that specific update, which does provide at least some limited visibility into whether a given update appears to be a minor fix or a more significant overhaul, even though this approach admittedly requires a bit more manual effort and genuine attention on your part compared to simply letting updates install automatically without any review at all. A fourth question worth addressing directly is whether this same overlooked settings pattern also applies to iPhone users specifically, since a meaningful portion of any audience watching a video like this one will naturally be curious whether the same underlying lesson applies equally to Apple's own App Store. And the honest answer is genuinely yes. Apple's App Store offers a broadly comparable automatic update toggle found within your iPhone's own settings app under the App Store section specifically. And the same fundamental principle we have been discussing throughout this entire video applies just as directly there. Most iPhone users have also simply never opened that particular menu, and the same considerations around storage space, cellular data usage, and unexpected interface or permission changes arriving through automatic updates apply in a broadly similar way across both major mobile platforms, meaning this entire conversation is genuinely relevant regardless of which specific type of smartphone happens to be sitting in your own pocket right now. And it is also worth briefly touching on one additional closely related setting that frequently gets discovered by users at the exact same moment they finally go digging through this same network preferences menu for the very first time. The option to control autoplay video previews specifically within the Play Store app itself while browsing, since many people are genuinely surprised to discover that scrolling through Play Store app listings has, for years, automatically played muted video previews and promotional trailers directly within the store, quietly consuming a meaningful amount of additional data in the background during ordinary browsing, entirely separate and distinct from actual app installations or updates. And this particular setting can similarly be adjusted to only play those preview videos over Wi-Fi, or disabled from autoplaying entirely, providing yet another small but genuinely meaningful way to trim unnecessary background data consumption once you know specifically where to look for it. And stepping back one final time to bring everything we have covered together into one complete practical picture, the core message of this entire video really comes down to a genuinely simple, actionable habit worth building for yourself going forward whenever you install a new app, sign up for a new service, or simply notice a settings menu you personally have genuinely never opened before on a device you already use every single day. Take just a few minutes to actually go explore it, because default settings, on the Play Store specifically and across the broader world of technology generally, are deliberately designed to work reasonably well for the widest possible range of typical users, but they are essentially never perfectly precisely optimized for your own specific individual situation, your own particular data plan, your own device's available storage capacity, and your own personal preferences around privacy, control, and convenience, and the handful of minutes it genuinely takes to review and thoughtfully adjust a setting. Like this one represents one of the single highest value, lowest effort investments you can realistically make in actually understanding and meaningfully controlling the device you already personally carry with you literally every single day.